What's up, everybody? This is Grant, that Cause Artist. In episode 225 of the Disruptors for Good podcast, we speak with Melinda Lee and Mallory Barrett, the founders of Parcel Health, a company revolutionizing pharmaceutical packaging with sustainability at its foundation. Every year, millions of plastic pill bottles are discarded, ended up in landfills, oceans, and incinerators. The problem? These bottles are rarely recycled, and it takes centuries to break down, contributing to the growing plastic waste issue around the world. That's where Parcel Health steps in. Melinda and Mallory have created compostable, recyclable, and food-safe medication packaging designed to protect both people and the planet. Their innovative solutions like the fill box and tully tube are child-resistant, water-resistant, and completely plastic-free, proving that sustainability and safety can go hand in hand. In this episode, we explore Melinda's inspiration from growing up in Malaysia and witnessing plastic pollution firsthand, Mallory's background on winning a global sustainability competition and pushing the boundaries of packaging design, how a single LinkedIn message sparked their partnership and changed the future of pharmaceutical packaging, the challenges of disrupting an industry resistant to change and how they're overcoming that, and Parcel Health's vision for the future and how they're working toward eliminating plastic waste from medicine cabinets worldwide. Here's my conversation with Melinda Lee and Mallory Barrett, the co-founders of Parcel Health. Hope you enjoy. We'll talk soon. Thanks. Well, thank you so much, Mallory and Melinda, for joining me today. Really excited to chat about Parcel Health. Read the story, looked it over. I mean, it's pretty cool how you two connected and what you're building. A health space that we're all sort of familiar with. You know, we can call it, prescription pill bottles or whatever. We'll get into more nuance to what it is, but it's in our everyday life. We see them and we deal with them. We pick them up for loved ones, whatever it might be. But we don't know what goes into it and sort of the market that it is and where it's at and where it's going. Before we get started on Parcel Health, talk about maybe your individual journeys for a little bit. And then, kind of the moment that you two connected and wanted to decide to start Parcel Health. Melinda, we could start with you.
Sure, absolutely. It's so great to be here, Grant. Such an honor to be able to join you on this podcast. I'm Melinda Lee. I'm a pharmacist by training. And, I started this journey as a pharmacy student. I was in pharmacy school, fully, my ambitions were, to be a clinical pharmacist, work in a pharmacy. And that journey started taking sort of a little bit of a pivot when I, was in a pharmacy going through just, hundreds and thousands of plastic pill bottles a day and recognizing that, it's a ton of waste and there has to be a better way to do this. Many other countries don't just dispense plastic pill bottles. And so, as someone, I'm an immigrant, coming from a country where we don't use plastic pill bottles, I felt that there was a way to do it in a more sustainable and a much more patient-centric manner. So that was really what got me started. I started thinking through the different solutions and recognizing that I'm a pharmacist. I may be familiar with regulations and recognizing how the workflow goes, but I may not be, and I am not great at product design and supply chain. And so that sort of really led to me looking for someone to work on this product with.
I'll echo Melinda's thanks, Grant, for having us. We're really excited to be chatting with you. And Melinda gave a very nice introduction to how her and I connected. So I have a background in industrial design, which is the design of things. And I remember even being in school and being sustainably minded, right? I was interested in sustainability, but I was having a bit of a moral conflict with going into a profession that creates more stuff. I didn't want to be a designer that just put more things into the world. And in school, I would think about that a lot. And we, as a class, we did a competition with Cradle to Cradle as one of our projects. And Cradle to Cradle is an organization that is really conscious of the life cycle of products from raw material to disposal. And so we were forced to think about what products are, so heinous to us. And I was researching plastic waste because plastic waste is a kind of obvious source. And I identified healthcare as a industry that's a bit heavy on single-use plastics, and ultimately identified plastic pill bottles. So I had done this project for a reusable prescription container, and it won a small award, like a student award, and that was all awesome. And I never really got to bring it to fruition at that time. But a couple of years later, Melinda was independently trying to solve the same problem, and that's how she found me online, and she messaged me on LinkedIn and more or less asked me if I wanted to be her co-founder, start a company, solve, healthcare's biggest problem, plastic waste. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I want to do those things with you. So
Yeah,
And
that's
Grant,
incredible.
to provide some context, Mallory was so far away from my network that I couldn't even send her a cold LinkedIn message. It was a time in which to message somebody 3+ connections away, you had to
Oh
get
yeah,
premium. So I had to get premium, and I'm like, "Hey, Mallory,
man.
want to start a company with me?" She was like, "Sure." And the moment she replied me and gave me her personal email, I deleted the premium account.
Yeah,
But that was
that's
how far apart we were. But we really cared about the same mission and really came together for it.
20. It's a $25 email, probably, huh? Something like that. That's pretty
Yeah,
worth
awesome.
yeah.
every penny.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
I mean, that's
absolutely.
incredible.
Yes.
I wanna I wanna touch on Melinda. You had mentioned sort of being from a different country, and in America we sort of don't we take for granted having waste facilities somewhat modernized and pretty good. We have landfills here. There's a lot of good ones. There's some bad ones, but we have a system in place where we can at least it's sort of out of sight, out of mind, right? For a lot of the stuff that we deal with. But being from Malaysia, I guess talk about if you can visually see the impacts of plastic that is sort of not thoughtfully thought about in the waste process or the production process. What are the maybe impacts on the community when you don't maybe have these inputs put in place where you can again move plastic or garbage in places where it belongs, and again it's out of sight out of mind for a population, but in
Hmm.
some parts of the world it's not out of sight out of mind, it's very much in sight and then there's a very
Yeah.
visible issue there.
Absolutely. So in the US, I mean, especially back in 2017, 2016, most of the plastic recycling, like when you put it in your blue bin that you
Yeah,
curbside recycling, most of it gets sorted and packaged up and shipped abroad. Like the United States ships out 4,000 containers per day of plastic waste to other countries to process. And at the time, Malaysia was sort of becoming a growing country accepting these plastic waste from the United States and Europe. And even today, Malaysia still remains one of the top Southeast Asian countries, top countries in Asia, taking in a lot of American and European plastic waste. So when you recycle something, we see the truck come down our street, they pick it up, they go to a local facility, but basically a lot of it just gets compressed and sent abroad for processing. And when it does get sent abroad to countries like Malaysia, what happens is they get illegally dumped in sites. So 45 minutes away from where my parents live and really close to where my grandmother lives, there is a landfill just filled with a ton of plastic waste from America and from Europe that got there 10, 15 years ago that's just been sitting around, and they go on to pollute our waterways. And that is not to say that Malaysians themselves don't generate plastic waste. We also generate plastic
sure.
waste on our own, but we get that added effect of also sort of sharing the burdens of American and European plastic waste. That really was sort of the catalyst as well when I was in pharmacy school, recognizing that, not only was I part of the problem in the sense of, I was dispensing medications for patients to pick up in a plastic pill bottle, but that every object that I was dispensing out was going to have a very high likelihood of floating down a river back home. That sort of really sort of kicked me into action and reaching out to Mallory and like, what can we do? Because
Yeah,
prescription pill bottles, we should be able to solve this.
yeah.
We're at a point where materials are there. We have innovated to a point where we should be able to solve this. This is not sterile injection IV bags where sterility is top of mind. We're still talking about packaging something that is consumed by mouth. There definitely is a way for us to innovate in this space.
Mallory, do you want to touch on maybe traditional pill bottles? Maybe when you were doing your competition and doing your initial research, what are traditional pill bottles, maybe what they're made of, and then we'll get into maybe the difference of what Parcel provides to the marketplace.
Traditional pill bottles have largely been made from often polypropylene, which is number 5 plastic, for the last many, many, many decades. Interestingly enough, way in the beginning, they were actually glass, and some of that glass came from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we learned recently, which is where we're headquartered. So kind of a fun full circle. But most of the plastic prescription vials that we see now are that amber plastic.
Yep.
They come in a range of sizes. Sometimes the caps are a different material, sometimes they're not. And something that we learned very early on in researching this problem is that number 5 polypropylene in the US is very seldom recycled. People can say it's recyclable, we can use air quotes about it, but the truth of the matter is that the infrastructure here is not hugely accommodating to that material, especially not of the material when they're in that size. They're small parts, they're colored, we're consuming them en masse. There's over 8 billion prescriptions that go out every year in the United States. Not every single one of those is going in a vial, but a lot of them are.
Yeah.
And we can touch on other types of plastic
Real
in.
quick, when you mentioned that it's, is it because they most don't get quote unquote recycled because the facilities are not necessarily like aluminum cans, like those are kind of maybe
Mhm.
a simple, we're kind of built to recycle that, or glass bottles, where the plastic, like you said, we have all these numbers, people just kind of throw everything into one blue bin, even though everything is not recyclable in one place. There might be different facilities that need these specific plastics, so it's, we have a long way to go for sure from a facility standpoint. But is that what you mean? Is that like people will kind of throw them in that blue bin, and then they get shipped to a recycling facility that will basically separate the pill bottles to be sent somewhere else?
It's a multitude of things. Each municipality has its own recycling facilities, and each is able to handle different materials. If you just go on kind of the national sites for recycling, you will
Yep.
find that less than 6 to 9% of plastic of all time, every plastic that's ever been made, has been recycled. And I think that's a very harrowing number. I think that's almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, paper, which is the core material in our product today, is over 80% recycled just based on current infrastructure. And that
Yep.
was something that was really important to us when we were developing the product, which was finding materials that were available and already a fit for recycling infrastructures to get around some of those challenges that we're seeing with the recycling facilities' inability to process the mass amounts of plastic that we consume in healthcare or elsewhere.
Talk about parcels now, as far as what is it sort of made out of? How is it sort of different than traditional ones?
We have the first and only paper prescription bottle. So our container is largely made of paper. It's, let's say 80% paper with a plastic adapter and a cap that are required for us to have the child resistance that we definitely want in our prescription containers. Safety is of the utmost importance for us as well, but the majority of our product is paper. So our mission as a company is to fill medicine cabinets with paper parcels, not plastics, specifically safe paper parcels. Paper is incredible.
Yeah.
Paper is largely recyclable. It's already being recycled all over. It's incredibly durable. We've even been amazed by how durable our product really is. If you think about a paper core and, there's varying thicknesses, we have a very thick, very proprietary layered paper that gives us incredible rigidity, which is really wonderful because we're seeing a huge shift to mail order. And our product is able to withstand these conditions that they might get knocked around, they
Sure.
might get banged up. It's very sturdy, and we're really proud of that. So we've been really excited to create this product and see how much paper can do, but it is a paper prescription bottle, the first and only of its kind.
The one thing that I love about you two's sort of co-founding ship here is that you have Melinda, which is a science background, right? Like technical, realizing that I need somebody who has a different talent than I have, but understanding that product design and that type of co-founding talent is what was needed, is such a underrated part of this story. I maybe want to touch on, like, early on, like for other founders that are obviously not maybe in the same arena, but are looking to solve problems and they have a certain skill, looking at design as a sort of secondary co-founder or a primary co-founder, looking at a scientist and saying, hey, how can we team up together? I guess just maybe some advice or tips about finding a co-founder, and maybe some of those initial discussions that you two had about, hey, do we really want to do this together? It's like a marriage, right? You're going to be talking to each other every day for probably a decade, hopefully, if everything goes well, right? But talk about those early days and just obviously that first interaction you guys had with LinkedIn, and then, but what were those follow up emails and conversations like to actually go from idea to we're actually going to do this?
Grant, I have a really funny example of sort of the terminologies that I had to learn. So,
Bet, yeah.
in pharmacy, you know, when a word is spelled out DIE, you say someone's died, right? Like a die.
Huh. Yeah.
And but in design world, a die is also a
Mm,
die, like how things
yeah.
get made, like the mold. And so that was
Hmm.
a really, really funny thing because I had to get clarification from Mallory, like, wait, is this spelled correctly? Like DIE? She's like, yeah, that's what they're called. And I'm like, oh, yeah, so we get to exchange a lot of terminology because then I get to share with her, oh, when the pharmacist says this is actually what they mean. And she gets to tell me when a manufacturer says this is what they mean. And it's just been really, really wonderful to be able to work in tandem that way. Grant, I think we would be absolutely misleading your listeners if we said that our co-founding journey was smooth and easy and
Oh
just
no, I'm
just
not. Yeah, I doubt it
happy go
was. Yeah.
lucky. Yeah, no, I mean, we just really believed in the same mission. And I'm just incredibly lucky that, to be able to have access to internet and LinkedIn at a time where I could find somebody who had spent so
Yeah.
much time before I did thinking through this problem. And so I already knew it was something that she was passionate about, right? Like that Mallory had, put together a design, submitted it for a competition and won it and was interviewed, by many, many news articles. So I knew she was already passionate about this issue. And so we both always had that to come home to, that we both cared about this problem. On a fundamental level, we cared about reducing plastic waste in the world. So we always came home to that. But
Yeah.
obviously, there were always, there were things that we had to learn along the way, how to communicate with each other, differences in sort of expectations and communication styles.
I often reflect on this very funny moment to me, which is that, after maybe one or two phone calls and a couple emails, I was just freely giving Melinda my social security number because we were signing the papers, which I find hysterical. And I look back at myself at that time and I'm like, you know what, Mallory, you really lucked out because obviously we've come a very long way together. It is like a marriage. Melinda and I there are very few days that go by that we don't talk, we don't
Yeah.
communicate, and we actually have developed a friendship as well, which I don't know if every co-founding pair is so lucky to say that, but we're close friends and business partners, and I definitely think that helps us. It's the way we like to work, and I think, like Melinda said, you have to learn communication styles, you have to be really clear in your expectations for yourself and each other, and the best thing, at least that I think keeps us continuing even when things are difficult, is that we have a mutual respect for each other and we both want to keep growing together. Our mission is so important to us at Parcel Health that we put that first, and we use that as an aligning factor for ourselves. And I think we both are confident that we can get through nearly anything, and that keeps us going. So finding a co-founder that you can have all those feelings about is not instantaneous, but it's something you can be confident that you're both working towards together. And I think that is true for most important relationships in your life, whether it's professional, friendly, family, romantic, whatever it is. But yeah.
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 And like last year, I mean, there was a period of time in 2024 where we weren't sure as a company if we were going to survive. There was a lot of moving parts. Grant, I'm sure you've interviewed
Yeah.
people in startup world. It is a
Sure.
hard journey.
Oh yeah.
And me and Mallory just, we made eye contact and we were just like, we're going to make it. We're going to do this no matter what. We're going to make it through. And we started calling each other cockroaches. I don't know how many people would be okay with their partner calling them cockroaches, but we started calling each other cockroaches. We're like, we're going to cockroach the shit out of this. We're going to survive this. And we're going to thrive. And so now we are out of cockroach mode and we survived it. And now we're in unicorn, beautiful horse, dragon in the sky mode. And to be able to have someone who's willing to go through that with you, it's so hard, right? Very, very few people are willing to be in the muds with you. And so I think the fact that our business partnership and friendship has really gone through that. I think going through hard times is what really tests it, and being able to
Yes.
overcome it just takes it to the next level.
Yeah. I think most of the, the news or, kind of the headlines that people talk about in startup land are always a bit more hunky dory and, raising so much money and growing and scaling. But, a lot of the times it's like you'll have those like 2 weeks where you're just like, are we going to be able to like survive after the next 30 to 60 days? Like 100% of startups will face a moment like that. And, usually it's the ones that can get past that. It might happen again. You might have to go through it again, but usually the ones that, survive, it's really about that. It's just like survival and just staying above water and not quitting and not doubting, that feeling that you have inside that you can succeed, you will succeed. And that you have a product that can last, in the marketplace for a long time and people want it. So I agree. I think going through those times together, it's so important, and to have that happen and come out of that feeling much better is nothing. There's no other feeling like it. It's really, really cool. I want to talk about the business model a little bit, and how to actually get this into the hands of pharmacies. I guess is the current customers like local pharmacies? Obviously, how do you get it to a point where you're knocking on, the Walgreens and the CVS as an option for a consumer, right? Because even as a consumer, I don't have the option of say, hey, I want my bottles to be filled with Parcel Health, not just the normal stuff. So I guess early on, like, what are the customers sort of now? Maybe what's the customers look like right now, and then maybe what's possible? What can we get to?
Yeah. Early days, definitely it's the local pharmacies that really believed in us. And for your listeners, we found a lot of our early customers through LinkedIn, just
Nice,
messaging them
love it.
and just
Yeah.
cold messaging them. And, as we, started growing and servicing more customers, those were really now more that we met at trade shows that we
Hmm.
are as much as trade shows is not really cold emailing, it's sort of getting the list and like hunting them down. Like we knew who we wanted to meet,
Mm.
and we would walk around their conference just looking at people's name badges. It's really funny because it was me, Mallory, and our other team member, Rebecca, and we just walk around just doing this, just like looking at people's name tags to see which company they're from. And the moment we
Yeah.
find the one that we're looking for, we're like, hey, this is our paper prescription pill bottle, the world's first and only. You know, who should we talk to in your organization? And these people at the trade shows would be like, well, I'm in charge of X category. I'm not the right person, but
Yeah.
I'll bring you to go and meet the right person to talk to this about. And a lot of it is hustle and like bringing our product out there. So today, a lot of smaller independent pharmacies definitely are carrying our product, but we've also been growing quite comfortably in the online pharmacy space. So online
Mm.
pharmacies that are shipping the medications out to patients directly. We're growing
Gotcha.
in that space. And as Mallory alluded at the beginning, there are billions and billions of prescriptions dispensed every single year in the
Yeah.
United States. We will not be able to meet our mission if the larger players like Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, Amazon Pharmacy now, as they're entering the
Yeah.
space, if they don't partner and work with us. And so that's definitely sort of our north star, right? Being able to work with them, and we're getting ourselves to be prepared to fulfill the types of volumes that they require us to, because in our conversations with them we know we're currently too small for them.
Yep.
And so as we're building our business and gaining confidence and like strengthening our supply chain, we are making positive strides towards making sure that we can actually fulfill and meet their demand as we grow.
Do you want to touch on add anything, Mallory? No.
No, Melinda's right. We've seen this shift to mail order. We're seeing even
Hmm.
shifts among the big chains. She's absolutely right that for us to meet our mission as a company, we do need these large partnerships, and we need to be ready for that. So with the independent pharmacies, with the digital health and telehealth companies, and even with some health systems this year, we're getting ready for that. We're excited. We've been really interested to see which different segments of pharmacy have been fast movers here and have been sustainability champions. That's been something that obviously we share that with them. We're aligned with them, and we're happy to report too that patients are loving it. Patients
Yeah,
think it's joyful. We
I
heard that
agree.
patients think it's fancy. Like there's all these things. There's all these extra benefits that come from these customers switching to our packaging. So
Yep.
I'm just excited. Looking forward to getting some of these larger partnerships, getting our product out to more people, and continuing to chip away at our mission.
I think the design part is everything. It's such the differentiator. Because I think, again, I've never felt a bottle, right? But it might feel the same as a bottle. So but it's the look as like whenever you get a prescription, it's just like it's almost like it's a negative thing that happens in your life. But for some reason, like if you get like a colorful package and maybe it's a little bit more customized to you or from your local pharmacy or something like that, there is this. Maybe it's fake or it's I don't know, but there is a difference about it, about when something looks good versus it doesn't. And there's obviously research has been done for decades on this, that we know sort of design can really, you know, spark off these things in our brains that we don't really know of, but it does happen. So I guess talk about one, the products, because you have three, well, two, and then I guess the custom one is the other one. But I guess talk about the product design, not just from, using the paper, but also the stuff you can actually see, and the colors that you've used. Go into that sort of design process, because it really does stand out. I mean, it's beautifully designed, and you do get a feeling of like, oh, I kind of want this. Like whether it's standing, in your bathroom, like on your shelf, or where you wash your hands or stuff like that. There is a good feeling about it, which is odd to say about pill bottles.
Yeah, of course. We have been, I think, as consumers, more interested and attuned to the unboxing experience, if you will,
Yep.
over the last however many years. And like you mentioned, getting a plastic amber vial feels a little bit, ugh. It feels a little bit like, am I sick? It feels like, this thing that I've been burdened with. And at Parcel Health, we actually like to view medication taking as self-care and as wellness and as taking care of yourself. And we think that having more beautiful packaging can carry that feeling on to patients. So we do utilize custom packaging. We do branded designs for certain customers, some independent pharmacies, some telehealth, and they can put their brand, their messaging, their
Love it.
vision, create that sense of trust, create that sense of community. And then even if someone's not getting branded, we make our Parcel Health vials very beautiful and fun as well. So we offer green prints and blueprints that have kind of nature undertones. We actually have just launched a pet print, which has a lot of
Nice.
little, very cute animals on it. It's very warm, fuzzy. They were buying it on pre-order. People are loving it. So we're trying to infuse joy into our packaging. And unlike other unboxing experiences, most people take their meds every day, if not multiple
Yep.
times a day. So
Yeah.
why not interact with something a little more fun and a little more joyful? And that's something we've been able to bring to patients with our packaging.
I want to talk a little bit about the overall just environment in general, and what the response has been like from pharmacies, telehealth providers, physicians, or whoever it might be who you're knocking on, whether it's a physical door or a digital door, and speaking to them about Parcel Health. I guess, what has their response been just from the entire ecosystem?
Yeah, it's been really, really warm and really exciting. I think a misconception we typically have to very quickly dispel when we go and meet a pharmacy buyer or a health system buyer is the durability of the product and also the price. I think when someone hears paper, they think, oh, it's going to be a little flimsy, it's going to be like printer paper. But think about all the packages that you receive in the mail that goes through so much sort of beating up. And our packaging is 3 times stronger than a typical plastic pill bottle. It can really, really withstand a lot of knocks and pressure. And so when we meet pharmacists, owners, and we meet buyers, we show them the product and they have it in their hand and they feel how sturdy it is. That's when it really starts telling the story that this is not only sustainable, but this is a safer and stronger parcel to keep medications in. That's one aspect. The second aspect is whenever people hear the word sustainability, they often quickly jump to the fact that this is going to be out of reach. This is going to be really, really unaffordable. But as Mallory alluded to at the beginning of the conversation, we were extremely careful when we were selecting our material for our products. We knew that we couldn't pick, a material that was going to be way too expensive for pharmacies and for the health system, right? Like we needed to pick a material that could rival the price of plastic. And so our product has been very thoughtfully designed and sourced, and our supply chain is built very well so that we can keep prices at an affordable rate for pharmacy. So these are typically the 2 first things that we have to address right off the bat. We meet someone, we're like, this is it. Feel how amazing it is. Look at how gorgeous it is. And guess what? It is most of the time at cost parity to the plastic pill bottles that you purchase. And that's when pharmacy owners and buyers and brand owners, that's when they're really like, oh my goodness. That's when they get really, really excited. And then they start really diving deep into sort of how much can we supply? How often can we supply? What is it like for our turnaround time? So that's been really exciting from sort of the sales side to be able to sort of bring not only a better product, but a product that's actually affordable and sustainable.
You want to jump in, Mal? Have you heard the same sort of sentiment from the market?
Yeah, absolutely. Melinda and I both do a lot of sales as being founders, which is like a fun new, I don't know if it's new anymore, but it was new to us at a time. And that means we have great relationships with our customers. And something that is really wonderful is calling, especially some of the community pharmacies, and hearing about the positive impact that this is having on the pharmacy and the patient. So it's very well received. Melinda hit the nail on the head with, the 2 questions that people are going to ask us. And then beyond that, it's new, it's novel, it's fun, and how do we roll it out? And, people are excited. And we actually get quite a few patient inquiries too from patients that are like, how do I get this at my pharmacy? And depending on who their pharmacy is, our answer may vary. So yeah, but all around, it's a fun, joyful, unique product. And I think people are always curious about what's new, what's next. Is this going to improve the experience? All of those things.
How would we talked earlier about sort of obviously the waste that is involved in this huge market globally, but specifically here in the US. How would you recommend people discard their parcel product? Would they normally discard it like how they normally would any plastic? Would you recommend they look to see locally which facility around them would discard something like this? Do they send it back to your facility? I guess talk about like again the full cycle of a product is so hard to do at that end of life sort of stage is sort of this last mile type of thing. How would you recommend consumers discard their products if they get them from parcels going forward?
Yeah. So we designed the Tully Tube, one of our newest product that's been really, really exciting. We recommend people separate out the child resistant top with the paper base. Yeah. So part of our patent is that we've developed a way where the child resistant mechanism can be disconnected from the paper tube bottom. And so the way that we would recommend it is for the consumer when they're done with their medication to just disconnect both parts, and the paper bottom can be recycled as paper bottom, and the top can be uh, depending on the local recycling, it can also be recycled locally or put in the trash can. We are developing different systems where we might be able to start taking back some parts of it to be reused, which would be really, really helpful. But also separately, something that patients can do is actually just requesting for prescriptions that are longer, right? If they have a chronic medication prescriptions, instead of filling them every 30 days, to actually request for a 90-day prescription upfront, because so then you get one large bottle, and our larger bottles have way less plastic than the small ones just from a proportion basis. And so for a patient who's filling a 90-day prescriptions, they're going to be able to really, really lower their plastic consumption really quickly within one fill.
Yeah, I noticed the other the fill box. I know we didn't touch on that sort of product, but that is sort of manufactured and assembled in the US. So like this has got to be just an awesome gem for Pittsburgh, the city, to kind of like just tote you guys. You guys are an awesome startup doing some amazing things in sustainability, but also creating local jobs, manufacturing things locally. I guess one, talk about the fill box product and maybe what's a little bit different about that. Again, beautifully designed, but also the manufacturing of it. And then just get into it's like Pittsburgh in general, sort of the tech scene there, or just the startup founder scene there, and how's that city sort of embraced parcels?
Yeah, absolutely. And Mallory, feel free to jump in with the fill box. I mean, the fill box was our first baby, our first child, and it was our first foray into this space. We really wanted a completely 100% plastic free prescription container. So the fill box was sort of that, right? It embodied all of sort of what we wanted it to be. And we took the product to market, and we quickly learned that as much as pharmacies really, really resonated with the full sustainable story,
Yeah,
safety was at the top of their mind. And our product at the time with the fill box, it could not land child resistant certification without
gotcha.
some sort of like polymer added to it. So either a polymer coating or a polymer adapter. And so we really, worked on it for a really, really long time, and we discovered that it was not going to be possible. And something Mallory and I, we really refuse to do is sort of do any form of greenwashing in which we were going to slap a plastic polymer on it that made the whole paper, just not recyclable.
Yeah,
And then that's how we got into the Tully tube, making sure that the child resistant mechanism can actually be separated from the paper base. So that was when we started working with a cylindrical bottle. And part of it is also, as Mallory mentioned earlier, with pharmacies moving more towards mail order, there's also a lot of automation being rolled out. And just because, these billions and billions of plastic pill bottles are out there, all these automation units have been designed around a cylindrical shape.
yeah,
And so we
gotcha.
were literally trying to fit a square box in
Mm-hmm.
a
Yeah,
cylindrical shape. And so we knew we had to innovate in the space. And so that's where this whole, development started coming together. We knew what our customers were looking for. We knew our customers were interested in a sustainable product, but they wanted it to be certified child resistant, and it needed to fit automation equipment. And so knowing this, we developed the Teletube together. Mallory and I really went to the board, and we were like, okay, these are all the things that it absolutely needs to do. The things that we learned from the fill box was that people loved how customizable it was. They loved the printing aspect of it. They loved that it's paper. It's very understandable how recyclable it will be. And so we integrated that into Teletube, and then we launched Teletube really, really recently. We actually just launched it like 3.5 months ago in August, and we've just been
wow,
seeing like just incredible adoption and speed. I mean, Mallory and I can barely keep up with some of the orders and customer sales that we
it's
get
great.
every day. Yeah, it's really, really fun. But that's our journey. And I think like startup journey, you may start with a mission, and your first or second product may fit the mission, but the market may not respond to it. And so then you innovate, right? You
Yep.
take what you learn, you come up with a second, third, fourth product, and it still fits the mission. And now the second, third, or fourth product, now the market really responds to it. And that's been our sort of learning experience.
Do you want to touch on maybe just the scene in Pittsburgh in general, how the city has embraced the company, or what support has been in the city? I guess how has it been starting there, I hear nothing but great things about Pittsburgh and sort of the startup scene there. But maybe for those who don't think of Pittsburgh as sort of a startup city, to talk about it a little bit and how it's benefited you guys.
Yeah, of course. So I actually moved to Pittsburgh about a year and a half ago because of Parcel Health. So Parcel Health is creating jobs in Pittsburgh,
Crazy.
but it's been a wonderful place to grow our business. One of the reasons that we headquartered our business in Pittsburgh is because we participated in an accelerator that was partially funded by the city of Pittsburgh. So that was Innovation Works and Allegheny Health Network partner to form Alpha Lab Health, which is an accelerator we went through. And
Nice.
that was monumental for us. That was kind of our first, bigger check that allowed us to plant our roots, get really, really serious about building our business. How are we going to do this? It enabled Melinda and I to come together physically in the same place. We did spend some time remote during COVID building this business. And we're so fortunate to be able to be in this very industrious, gritty city where everyone is like, they've just, Pittsburghers have this attitude of like just getting it done. And I think that's
Yeah.
been really evident here. Um, we have an amazing network of investors, mentors, peers, other founders, and it just continues to grow. Melinda probably has things she'd like to add to this. Just she's been in Pittsburgh a little bit longer than me, but it's been really wonderful. I felt welcome since day one. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Melinda.
I think Pittsburgh's a great city for a startup. I mean, for every dollar that we raise, we're able to really, really stretch it here in Pittsburgh just because cost of living here is much more affordable than any other
Yeah.
larger sort of startup hubs. And because it is such a city that really encourages manufacturing and physical products, we're in good company in terms of
Yeah.
other startups that also manufacture and ship physical products. So yeah, it is a great city for innovating and building and manufacturing.
I'll end a little bit on the future, and I know it's hard to predict things, and times change very fastly, and it's just there's a lot of different dynamics that go in to the future, especially within a startup. But if you look 3 to 5 years down the road, what are some of the successes you and the team would like to achieve? We could start with you, Melinda.
Yeah, and Mallory and I can both answer this. We at
Yeah,
least for
definitely.
this particular year, we have set our sights on sort of in the next 6 months, displacing 1 million plastic pill bottles in 6 months, and out of the 8 billion plastic pill bottles that are dispensed every single year, next year we're targeting 10% of that, and then the following year 20% of that, and we're setting our sights not just on prescription plastic pill bottles. There are also a lot of plastic pill bottles that are over the counter, right? For your
Yep.
Tylenols, your ibuprofen, your Advils. And so we're also setting our sights on sort of really any sort of packaging that touches medications and supplements and over the counter. There's a lot to be innovated there. And I'll let Mallory touch on sort of
Yeah.
other R&D projects that we have. Those are really, really fun as well.
Yeah. We are pretty aligned on our immediate targets for TullyTube. It's the beginning of the year. We've been doing quite a bit of planning, but there are a lot of opportunities, like Melinda mentioned, in over-the-counter medications,
Yep.
vitamin medications, supplements, and even maybe keeping medications safe as they're starting to be shipped more. So that could be product specific to shipping, whether that's just regular temperature or cold shipping. Climate is changing, different places need different things. So just safe delivery medication, there's a whole suite and range of products
Yep.
that we'd like to create and really service that. Yeah. Any and all prescription, pharmacy, healthcare packaging, we're coming for it.
No, that's amazing. I mean, it's such a unique startup, and it just shows that no matter how large you think a ecosystem is, and the giants, in the game, there's always somebody with an idea, with almost irrational confidence to like go out and try to find a partner and do it together, right? And it's like sometimes it takes that irrationality to like build something incredible and grow it, and So it's awesome. Amazing story. Thanks so much for taking the time. I know you're both busy, like you had mentioned, with all the new business coming in. So that's amazing to hear. Just want to say best of luck for you and the team for the next decade to come, and can't wait to see what's next. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Grant.
Yeah, thank you, Grant.